Hello, welcome to this lecture of Culture and Literature 1.2. This lecture is created for the School of Education Department of the Rotterdam University of the Applied Sciences, and my name is Ahmet Çakyoglu. During this lecture, you will be introduced to the Bildungsroman. Like always, don't forget to take notes. This lecture does not have a lot of goals, as most will be discussed in the physical class, but we are going to focus on a few things. Our main objective, which is also important for the weekly assignment, is that you can describe what the Bildungsroman is and how you can tie its definition to arguments and examples from literary works. In this lecture, you will also get some background information that is relevant to the book you're reading, which is Randa Gerard's A Map of Home. Finally, we'll briefly recap what a subject and a theme are when discussing and analyzing literature. Now, to answer the question of what it means to become an adult, we need to ask some questions to elicit more information. The first is, at what point did you realize you were an adult? And this does not only have to do with age, but of course the feeling you had, the experiences you've lived through, maybe an important moment in your life that changed it, or maybe it was a gradual process. Whoever you are, this is different for each person. Maybe you are like Peter Pan and you never grow up, or you don't want to. Even then, there are moments that change you and in which you grow as a person. One of the moments that puts things in perspective is when you start seeing that adults can also make mistakes. We idolize adults, especially our parents. So when did you start seeing that the adults in your life were fallible? And then there comes a point that an individual actually leaves the nest. Sometimes because of school or because of a relationship, sometimes just because it feels like the right time. Maybe because you want to have experience abroad or whatever. Sometimes there is just no other choice. Whatever the reason, this is also a significant moment in your life. So, how old were you when you were first on your own? Are you actually all on your own right now? How did relation dynamics change after you started staying on your own? Basically, another word for a Bildungsroman means a coming-of-age story. It usually shows the development of a character from childhood to adulthood. A Bildungsroman focuses on how someone changes both mentally, physically, and morally into an adult and deals with what we in pedagogy call the formative years. It shows a person changing and becoming an individual. For the class lesson, think of what your favorite coming-of-age story is. Right here you can see the poster photo of the film Moonlight. An Oscar-winning film, although there was of course quite a mix-up at the award ceremony, it was a fantastic victory for the entire production crew who poured their hearts and souls into creating this beautiful coming-of-age film. Now when you bring your own title, make sure you bring your title, either a book, film, song, poem, or any other work, and have a brief explanation prepared on why that particular piece is your favorite. Also, think of a few events in your life when you first realized you were adults or becoming adults. This can be personal, of course, so think of situations that you are open to share in class. The book that we're going to discuss this week is called A Map of Home by Randa Gerard. And obviously, A Map of Home deals with a lot of important issues, and the Israel-Palestine conflict is the most important one. Now, it is always tricky to deal with political issues while dealing with literature. And this is something that you need to take into consideration when you are teaching yourself. Now, of course, it's impossible, especially as an adult and a teacher, not to have an opinion about world matters. But in your role as educator, you will need to try and stay non-political when presenting these types of information snippets that might be relevant to a discussion on literary works. The YouTube video here, which is already a few years old, will take you on a brief, simple history lesson on the conflict. It doesn't go into all of the details, but it's a good starter to get yourself acquainted with the situation. Now you might want to pause this lecture in a second and then go watch this video and then come back to finish this lecture. While watching the video on the conflict, I want you to reflect on the news that you've been reading over the past few days and think about how the situation is right now. This is a good preparation for the group discussion on A Map of Home. You can also find the link to the video in the description. Go ahead and pause now. Okay, welcome back. Let's continue our lecture. Okay, let's go over a few important dates real quick. And you might want to take some notes as there will be a class discussion linked to these conflicts. We'll start in 1990. So on 28 until 30 May, the Iraqi president Saddam Hussein says that oil overproduction by Kuwait and United Arab Emirates was an economic warfare against Iraq. Ultimately, on August the 2nd, about 100,000 Iraqi troops invade Kuwait. On the 8th of August, Operation Desert Shield is launched by the United States and 100,000 American troops are sent to Saudi Arabia. On 29 November of that year, the UN Security Council passes Resolution 678, setting a deadline for Iraq to withdraw from Kuwait before January 15, 1991, or of course face military action. Now 2 days after the deadline, on 17 January of 1991, Operation Desert Storm is launched. The first of several air attacks are launched on Iraq and Kuwait. On February the 28th, the war ends. The casualties? 25,000 to 50,000 dead Iraqi people and 292 dead coalition forces. The issues in the previous slide are of course going to be dealt with during our class at the HR. And in order to do that, we need to quickly recap what a subject is and what a theme is when we talk about literature. So a subject is what is actually being discussed in the text. It is generally a quick recap on what events have actually happened in the work, which is an assortment of facts. The theme is not something that is discussed, but actually goes deeper. It is something where the author almost covertly gives us an opinion. So theme deals with deeper issues. And these themes are often one-word concepts, so where we can see how the theme plays out in the text. Make sure you remember this before coming to class, as the subject and theme are important in the discussion of A Map of Home, as we've seen in the previous slides. Now again, I would like to remind you that you should have a good understanding of the topics in this lecture so you can actively participate in the sessions at the HR. Participate in the group discussions and make sure you ask your questions if you don't understand. We have reached the end of this lesson. Make sure you join the class on A Map of Home after watching this lecture. Take care and see you soon.